Hey there everyone, I'm Don, Professor Goe, and welcome to the Goe Pro Travel Tale podcast. Travel far and travel often. Hello everyone, welcome to the Goe Pro Travel Tales podcast. Today we are talking about Spain, and if you've read the title of the podcast, you will know that we're actually not going to talk about the big stuff of Spain or the famous iconic site, which would be things like La Sagrada Familia, which is the big, very famous unfinished church. And I haven't introduced my guest formally here, but I want to ask a question of Magí. Magí, is the Sagrada now finished? I keep seeing reports that it is finished, and then I read that it isn't finished. So we are here to talk about not the big stuff, but this one is interesting to me. So is La Sagrada Familia finished?
The short answer is no.
No,
it's
okay.
not,
So
it's not yet. So
okay.
The plan is to finish in 2034.
Oh.
But yeah, it will take quite a lot of time. But the second to last, tower is already finished. The Tower of Jesus Christ, so this is a great achievement, and maybe that's why some people think that it's already finished, but it's not.
And that's what I think. I saw a story of the lowering of that last tower, and someone said that was it was done. But obviously you've just confirmed that it's not done. And I'm going to guess that Spain probably never finishes it because it's a good story that it's never, ever finished. But again, we're not here to talk about the big stuff. We're here to talk about some of the other stuff. So along with that, Spain is well known for the Alhambra. You've got the famous cities of Seville, Granada, Barcelona, Valencia, Cordoba, etc. Of course, Spain has amazing beach life, Costa del Sol, all those wonderful things, nature as well. But we are here today to talk about not those other things, but we're going to focus in on the culinary and the celestial. So Spain is well known, rightly so, for its cuisine, which we'll get into, but also upcoming in 2026 and 2027, I believe, are some solar eclipses. So that's what we're going to focus on, but it's not going to be me because I don't know much about this. This is where our guest, Magí from the Spanish tourism organization based in, you're in New York, is that right?
I'm in New York, yes.
In New York, okay. So I gather you are Spanish by birth and that's your home country?
Yes, correct. I was born in Barcelona and moved to Madrid.
In Barcelona, okay. So I have some basic Spanish, but mine's Latin Spanish, so I don't have the famous Castellano lisp, which I already heard when you said Barcelona. So before we get into all these other things, Magí, can you tell me how you got involved in the promotion of your country? Have you always been involved in tourism? Is it something you came to later in life? How did you get involved?
Well, I'm a civil servant. It was when I joined the Spanish executive branch, there were plenty of options. Mm-hmm. And the most attractive one was tourism at that time. So it was just a coincidence at that moment. My plan was just to try it. And it was so amazing, the experience, that completely changed my mind. Promoting your country abroad gave me, a lot of opportunities to even know our country better, but also learn more about other cultures, because I think sometimes the best way to promote your own country or your own destinations is knowing better, what the customer wants and what they expect during their holidays. And that's why I was so engaged that I never left.
Fair enough. When you were younger or even when you were older, did you travel throughout Spain itself or throughout Europe or the world? Like, has travel always been an interest to you?
Yes. Although I'm born and raised in Barcelona, I spent all my holidays in Salou. It's a small resort very close to Barcelona on the seaside. And there you see, thousands of people from all over Europe spending their holidays there. And I was always so curious about their countries of origin. So I was very lucky that my parents were very engaged in traveling. So after the summer, we always organized trips to Europe. We started in Europe, of course, then we tried other countries, the US, Australia, so we traveled quite a lot when we were young, and so it somehow opened our minds.
Hmm.
It's an amazing experience, traveling.
Yeah, yeah. Again, that's I think one of the reasons most people get involved in travel and tourism, whether they come through a sort of a formal gateway like yourself through the government services, or like myself, traveling as a youth and then becoming a travel guide and just falling in love with it. And I think what was key in your statement there was that, it opens your mind to everything, really. If you look at it the right way, different cultures, different ways of doing things, different attitudes, different foods, different everything. Um, Often when I speak to people from around the world, we're always conversing in English, and generally speaking, the English of my guests is exceptional, as is yours. And quite often, I find that they've been educated outside of their home country. Is that the case for you? Did you do any education in the US or elsewhere, or were you born and raised throughout in Spain?
Not unfortunately. That's why I have this strong accent, I think. So thanks for the compliment, but I know that my English is well, it's good, but of course the pronunciation is. I never had a chance to study abroad,
Hmm.
and that's but I learned English, watching movies, and I had honestly very good teachers. So that's how
Right.
I learned English.
Is English part of the curriculum in schools in Spain?
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
It is.
And our generations were the first ones to have English because our parents used to have French. So
Oh,
we
okay.
were, yes, so I'm from the 70s, and in that generation, we started, with English. That's why it was so important, to have good teachers. At that time, it was difficult to find English-speaking teachers. Now it's very easy. We have very good programs. Even some public schools in Spain teach in English some subjects, but at that time was something rare. Even some people from a generation they manage better French than English. So uh,
Interesting. Yeah, I've got a very good friend back home in Australia, uh, who he and his family migrated to Australia from Poland. Um, and he had very little English when he first arrived, but the English he did have, he learnt through music. You said you learned some of yours through the movies. He learnt his through he loved his heavy metal music, and he would learn the words that were being sung in English, and that's how he got his first steps into English. So yeah, it's always interesting to hear how, again, other cultures, when you're exposed to it, how it can influence you. Anything from, excuse me, food to learning that language. Okay, so let's get into our conversation point. Excuse me one second. Sorry about that. I'm just getting over a rather bad cold. Um, so as we mentioned, we're going to focus on culinary and celestial. So let's talk about the skies first. And I didn't know this until you brought this up for our conversation. In 2026, which is this year, and 27, there are some solar eclipses happening. So why Spain to view those? When are they happening? Basically, fill me in and our audience in on why someone should consider getting to Spain to witness those solar eclipses.
well, we think it's another excuse to visit Spain. We know that many North Americans usually avoid August as a month of visiting Europe, and we think it's a good chance you know to change their habits and visit our country because here in New York, it was a huge phenomenon when we had the solar eclipse, and very unfortunately, not everybody could enjoy it in the proper place because it was very difficult to find lodging. It was very difficult to find a place with good infrastructures to to visit the right spots, And this is something that we are pretty confident it will not happen in Spain because we have a country that is fully prepared to host all these people, tourists that would love to have this unique experience. In the US, it was an amazing experience. People really had a great time, but we have seen that many people wanted to go to the mountains or going to some special places. And now we know that, for instance, NASA is considering broadcasting directly from Spain, this solar eclipse. So that's why we think that we have the best spots to enjoy the view or non-view of the sun, the solar eclipse. I think it's a a good occasion to go to Spain, and also because, as I said before, we have good facilities, lodging, and also good airports. So everything prepared so you can enjoy not only in the main cities, because some people think, okay, I can enjoy it from Mallorca, for instance. It is a very popular destination among Americans. But some people can go simply to La Coruña, Oviedo, or Teruel, very other spots or cities that are not usually on the main catalogs. So we think it's a good chance to visit cities that are totally off the beaten path, but also that can provide a great experience of this phenomenon that is unique, because very few times in your life will you be able to watch total solar eclipse. And in Spain, you have two opportunities now in 2026 in August 12th and in 2027 in August also in the second.
Okay, so both years it's in August. And as you say,
Yes.
if NASA are choosing Spain to observe it, then I think that pretty much seals it as the best place to catch it. Are there any particular cities where it will be better to see the eclipse, or is it something you can take in across all of Spain?
It's not exactly. On the 2026 eclipse, it will go, so to speak, from westwards to eastwards. So in the northern part of Spain uh, will be maybe the best spot because not everybody, uh, you know, not everybody spends their holidays in the northern part of Spain. So it's a good chance for foreigners to go there and find out nice spots. So this is a good opportunity going to discover, for instance, Asturias or Galicia. Now we have a direct flight from Newark to Galicia to Santiago de Compostela. So it's a good chance that you have a direct flight even from the US to go to this spot. So everything somehow is, can you say that the stars are aligning somehow, and it is very appropriate to make this comparison. But I think that it's a good spot. No? But of course, if people want to be comfortable or you're traveling with your families, you can always go to the Balearic Islands and stay in Mallorca or Menorca. There is a biosphere reserve in Menorca, and from there you can have a nice experience, but also can have great hotels, nice family uh, vacations there. So it's good. So everybody will be happy, so to speak.
Perfect. I was just smiling as you were passing on that information because I heard in the background all the sirens going off. So all the ambient sounds of um,
Yeah.
all the ambient sounds of New York City happening in behind you there. Um, so um, your point is with the eclipses in particular that going up north is a good spot to go, which obviously takes you away from the usual suspects of the big cities. Um, is the infrastructure throughout Spain for tourism? Like, I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Like, is infrastructure in the smaller towns and the smaller regions ready for, be it some tourists or a lot of tourists? And the reason I ask that is one, so our travel partners out there can understand whether it is, but two, and again, we all must understand, and I think a lot of people realize too, that when you see things on the news, it's often sensationalized or it's a small thing making news again, being sensationalized. And what has been hitting the airways here, not recently, but over the last year and a bit, was the pushback by locals in Spain of tourism in Spain or the over tourism in Spain. Is that a thing? Is it something that was blown out of proportion? Is it something that was only sort of localized to maybe some of the biggest cities?
Well, honestly, uh, our approach to this is very neutral and clear. These problems usually are reported in summer, usually in August, when there are no other news to report because everybody's on holidays. And sometimes, it's it's been exaggerated. I don't mean that of course, local people sometimes complain about uh, certain situations, but it's not about tourism itself. It's always about the lack of housing. So it has completely nothing to do with tourism. That's why, the good point about that is that local authorities are taking measures very seriously. So these kind of situations don't take place. And don't take place because, we manage better the cruises because sometimes it's like a visual impact that sometimes you have two, three, four cruises, thousands of people disembarking in a small harbor. So it's like a kind of impact. But if you consider a city like Barcelona, for instance, that the majority of tourism events take place throughout the year. So Barcelona is one of the favorite cities to host, organize a congress, for instance. So the city is more based on this kind of tourism, not the leisure tourists, so to speak. That's why it's sometimes surprising to hear this kind of news. But certainly, we are trying to manage that. Uh, and we think that the experience it's excellent, honestly. Spain has always been considered the best country as a destination, the best destination in the world by the World Economic Forum for many years in a row. This last year was an exception. We have the infrastructure everywhere, not only in the main cities, but also in smaller ones. And we are seeing that that's quite funny, and this is what we enjoy when we read our surveys that more and more tourists, particularly from America, find very funny going to this typical, totally off the beaten path spot, and they try to order a meal in Spanish, because sometimes the waiter cannot manage, to speak English. And so it's part of the funny aspect of being abroad, So this small challenge that trying to order, coffee or ham or your meal, in a very small village, in the mountains. So this part of what makes, tourism so special, this kind of adventure. But of course, if you go to small towns that are close to the seaside or to the capital, of course, everybody speaks English. Um, yes, they can manage that, and we have infrastructure. That's why we think, and we are seeing that it's going to be quite an amazing event. I think it was last week. Even United Airlines said that they were seeing a huge increase in bookings to Spain, thanks in August, and we hope it is thanks to this eclipse event. So we know that we have the direct flights, we have the best hotels, uh, almost everywhere. So even small cities have good hotels there. And that's why we are always we are prepared to welcome tourists. Everybody is so
So,
happy and ready to welcome them.
so to our travel partners out there, as you can hear from what Magí is saying, is that Spain is capable in all destinations, be it the big cities or the remote countryside cities, to accept tourists in general. Excuse me again. Um, but also with the big events in general. But of course, in this instance, we're talking about the eclipse. They are, again, ready to go. However, it is Europe, it is the high season. So if you do have clients that have learnt about this or you now want to pitch this to your clients, we are coming up to June. So it would be now considered somewhat close to a last minute booking for Europe and Spain, of course. So get in, give us a call. We can look for the accommodation. be it in a big city or a small city, to get your clients over there for the eclipse. Or ideally, if they can't get in for any reason, you can pitch next year. So this is a good thing. It's not just what's coming up in 2 months, it's what's coming up in about 14 months as well. So there's lots of time to plan for that as well. Yeah, the reason I was asking that question is one, just to get clarification on what sometimes the news, as I said, sensationalizes, but also we see throughout Europe in particular, but worldwide, but more so Europe, that it's getting busier and busier. Like Europe was always busy in summertime, but it's now busy in wintertime. It's in certain countries and cities, Paris, London, Berlin, etc. It's crazy busy now than what it used to be. So I would assume Spain is similar. Is it on the same levels as Italy and France with its summertime traffic, or would Spain be, relatively speaking, lesser touristed than those neighboring countries, France and Italy in particular?
Well, the huge advantage that we have in Spain is that almost all hotels and almost all destinations are open all year round. This is a huge advantage. So people can travel anytime. And we are seeing now that even December, November, and January, even January, are great months for North Americans to travel to Spain. The big month usually is June, not July or August. So June, May, September. So people always travel in the shoulder seasons. That's the big months. But now we are experiencing huge demands particularly in December. December last year has been amazing. People want to enjoy, the Christmas markets. People want to enjoy, yes, Christmas time in different cities. And since we have so many, direct flights, people find it very convenient to go there and spend their holidays or Christmas Eve in in Spain. This is something we are very happy about that because local communities are very grateful. They like it because they are not used to have tourists in the winter season. I mean, in the peninsula, Spanish peninsula, but in the islands, for instance, in the Canary Islands, it's like being in Hawaii, but in Europe, uh, they are used to welcome tourists all year round, as I say. So the Germans, the Norwegians, everybody spend their holidays there. And there's never lack of capacity because there's a lot of islands and a lot of infrastructure, and it's very good to spend your winter time there also. That's why we're also promoting these islands because people from the eastern coast here in North America can have the chance just to have, to visit volcanic islands that are, for instance, Tenerife is one of the main islands in the archipelago, has the highest mountain in Spain called El Teide. And this mountain is a volcano. It's like the Mount Fuji in Japan. So instead of traveling to Japan or after traveling to Japan, you can go to this small island and have also a nice view of another volcano, but you're in Europe. So this combination of being like in Japan or in the Caribbean and also in Europe at the same time, it's quite unique. And we are seeing that many people from North America really love traveling there.
Yeah, that actually ties in well with our subject matter today of Spain beyond the icons, because about a month ago, maybe, I did a webinar with Tenerife, and they explained to me and to our listening audience, viewing audience, all the joys and highlights of Tenerife. So, as you just brought up, it's a really good alternative to mainland Spain and mainland Europe, be it the high season or be it the off season, because it's beautiful weather, wine, the whole thing. So go and check out that webinar if you haven't, for that extension on today's subject matter of being beyond the icons of Spain. Um, so let's get to our other sort of topic today, and that's this food of Spain. Now, I just came back from India and we were fed to death, and the food was wonderful. And if you're on a diet, forget it, because it's just food everywhere, be it in the five-star restaurants. You can go from Western, street food, there is meat in India, vegetarian, vegan, the whole thing. Now, Spain is rightfully famous for its cuisine offerings. It's also, if you don't know, probably more so than most places. I see it or saw it a lot as I was tour guiding in Latin America, that dinner time in particular, but eating is a very social thing, a very family oriented thing. You've got some very famous recipes and styles of food down there, tapas being one, which we'll talk about in a minute. So, what makes Spanish food, the Spanish culinary offerings, so special, and why does it sometimes take a backseat to maybe the French cuisine?
Well, it's very easy to understand. It's first of all that the French and Italians simply just came first. So people were used to them before our gastronomy was better known. But thankfully, our restaurants or cooks now are, you know, very well known. If you just check the rankings of the best restaurants in the world, there's always in the top four, at least two Spanish ones, sometimes even three out of four. So I think they're doing a great job at promoting. So it was more a marketing thing rather than a gastronomy aspect, that the food has always been very original, unique, and diverse, because we think that the main point here is that we are a small country compared to Canada or the US, but we have so many mountains that each valley has very unique cuisine and very unique gastronomy. And that's why our travelers always love having a great time. It's a great moment of rest and gathering, around the table and having great food that is completely different from the one that you have in the neighboring valley or in the neighboring city. And this is something that people really like. And above all, since the food is so diverse, rich, and tasty, we know as human beings, that you will always remember when you eat well. So that's a fact, and that's why we think that people really like going to Spain. I'll give you just one figure. Last
Yeah.
year, 11% of Americans that travel to Spain have been there more than 10 times.
10
So
times.
more than 10 times. So imagine, so only, in a diverse country, you can have this kind of repetition rate. Something
Yes.
that it's amazing. And we think that, of course, we are very proud of our culture and we are very proud of our landscapes. But we think that also food is playing a key role here, because once you've been in Barcelona, once you've been in Madrid, you want to go to, for instance, San Sebastián or Bilbao or Gijón or Santiago de Compostela, Santander. The northern part of Spain is very rich in gastronomy. People really like being there, or Avila or Toledo, very close to Madrid, So Oviedo and Gijón, these two cities in Asturias are also nice. And also you can go to Extremadura and enjoy the original Spanish ham. So, every region has different culinary dishes that are totally unique and different. And this is what people really like that, because after enjoying a nice view or visiting a cathedral or having a great time at the seaside, at the beach, you can just enjoy either a nice paella that is very iconic, I know, but you can eat
Hmm.
also in Mallorca tumbet, it's a kind of roll that is very tasty, or different foods that you can find, for instance, in the Pyrenees, in the mountains. So, and people like that, and people remember that, and people talk about that to their neighbors. And
Yeah.
that's why so people repeat and go there. So it's something that for us is amazing. I've never seen that before. I've been working this trade for more than 27 years. And it's the first time that I see neighbors here close to New York that take a plane, go to San Sebastian, eat, and fly back. Maybe spend there 3-4 days, only.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
yeah, it's something amazing, amazing. And I'm not saying that food is the main driver, but certainly it's like a good excuse. So they find an
Yeah.
excuse. Okay, let's visit the cathedrals or let's enjoy a good concert because now people are also taking the chance to visit Spain because of the concerts, but also have also a great meal with my wife or the family and just fly back. So it's something that's totally amazing, and we love to hear that because food is part of our culture, it's part of our identity, it's something that makes us very proud.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It mightn't be the main driver for most people. For some, it is. People will travel places just to eat. But even if it's not at the top of your list, as you say, you'll do your day of exploring, whatever it may be, anything from trekking, surfing, lying by a pool all day at a resort, visiting cathedrals, visiting museums. End of the day, you need to eat, you need to drink, and I guess that's the next step in any country is to sample the local cuisine because it's 9 times out of 10 different than where you come from. And quite often, as in Spain in particular, it has a reputation of being wonderful. Let me ask you from a cultural point of view. When I was traveling and guiding through Latin America, for most of the countries, there wasn't the classic siesta, the afternoon break. However, when we went to Argentina, uh, I learned that Argentina is sort of more probably closely linked culturally to Spain, and therefore they followed to a stronger degree than the other Latin countries this afternoon siesta, where the shops would shut down about 1, 2 o'clock and stay closed until about 4 or 5. Then they'd reopen, and then dinners were very, very late in the evening, very European Spanish thing. In fact, we went to Paella one night as Westerners. We went in about 7 o'clock for dinner. The place was empty, though it was preparing the evening meal. We sat down as a group. We ate. A couple of hours later, 9:30, we were leaving, and that's when all the Argentinians came in because they eat later. Is that still something that happens in Spain? I.e., is there the afternoon siesta where things in general will close down, and or do most Spanish eat dinner, particularly later in the night, compared to those timings in the US and Canada?
Well, one of the huge advantages of Spain, and particularly the tourism experience, is that now almost all restaurants, I'm not saying they are open all day around, but they start very early and they close
Hmm.
very late. And
Right.
this is one of the huge advantages, as I say, of being a very popular tourist destination. Um, so we started very early, so many decades ago, it was a fact, that some tourists couldn't find the right restaurant open at 12, so or at 1 p.m. But now it's not the case. Now even at 11 a.m. you can start and have either brunch or lunch, whatever you think better.
Hmm.
On end up they close at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in very late at night. So it's something that it's a lot of variety here, and particularly in popular destinations. And in small towns, of course, sometimes they close at for the siesta time, but it has to be a small towns, but not the normal ones that you usually visit as a tourist. It doesn't happen, this way, because demand creates, opportunities. And of course, restaurants think, okay, if I have enough tourists, I can start earlier, and it's not a problem. So main tourist shops are open, of course, uh, and certain uh, areas or small towns not, but I can tell you that the majority of them are open. But it's funny, because even me, as a Spaniard, sometimes I go to the mountains. Um, it's 2 p.m. and you want to order a burger in the restaurant, and the waiter tells you, well, you have to go to the other village, to the neighboring village, to order a burger because we don't serve burgers here. So it's part of the part of the attraction of being a tourist is something that sometimes is unexpected. That they say, okay, here we don't serve only serve like lamb or serve, kind of beef, but never a burger, with fries that maybe some people expect that.
So has the changing times in general and the advent of tourism in particular changed the cultural aspect of the average Spaniard? So let me ask you this. When you're back home with your family, do you eat Western hours, like an early dinner, 7 o'clock, or does the average Spaniard still eat later in the evening, or has that changed through the influx of the modern times and tourism?
It has changed a lot, and
It has.
it has changed a lot. You notice that in younger generations, or even in mine. So
Really? Okay.
yes, nowadays uh, the business hours, at least
Hmm.
for instance, even in our department, we are a government agency. It resembles more than the one that we have here in New York than the
Hmm.
one that we had, maybe 20 years ago. So I think it's good that new generations are somehow driving a change,
Right.
and adjusting and creating more free time. So it's not something that changes everywhere. Of course, if you go to the southern part of Spain, where you have more sunlight hours and sometimes the temperature is slightly higher, uh, people tend to split and have the siesta time and more in the evenings. But certainly in Madrid or in Barcelona or in other cities, the business hours are changing. So they're open more time, so longer. They are open longer, but in your business, things, yes, are changing. And this is, I
Okay.
think it's good. It's a good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no.
It's more
Again,
efficient. It's more efficient.
yeah. Well, if the Spanish are happy with it, then it's cool. It was just something I noticed. Again, this is like 30 years ago as well. So as you say, things have slowly changed. I'm sure Argentina has probably changed in the same way. Um, a couple of questions for you here. I've got on my notes here some different types of food in different regions, which you touched on before. You're saying like literally from one valley to another, you can get a difference. But some of the sort of more sort of main notes of somewhere like Galicia, where you have seafood. You have Catalonia, which has this is I'm reading from my notes here. Mediterranean meets the avant-garde. Andalusia, the birthplace of gazpacho, fried fish and sherry. Valencia, the paellas. I noticed in my notes here it mentions Basque country, and I don't know how to pronounce this. I'll spell it to you. You could then pronounce it for me. Pintxos. Pintxos? How does he pronounce that?
Pinchos, pinchos.
Pintxos. Pintxos. Um, so,
Yes, there are small snacks,
yeah,
or appetizers that are very
right.
popular in the Basque Country. Yes,
So,
it's
can
like
you?
tapas. The tapas that maybe the word is more familiar to you. Tapas.
Okay,
So it's
so
like
I'm going to come
Basque
back.
style tapas, so to speak.
Okay, I'm going to come back to a question to you on
Sorry.
the Basque country itself, but can you explain to people who are out there who may not know what a tapas is?
Yeah, well, as I say, it's like a kind of snack or appetizer that you say. Tapa in Spanish is like a lid, that you have on a drink, for instance. And it was the traditional of serving is that when you used to order, for instance, wine, it came with a lid, and over that lid was like a portion of food, so it could be ham or cheese, whatever. But it became so popular that now they are like a dish on their own. So it's
Right.
not like something like a side dish, but it used to be like a lid, something that it's you have that it, and that's why it became popular. But usually was something that was like a side dish, was for free, that you just were ordering a beer or wine, and the waiter served you, this snack.
Okay. Now, one thing I've learned about Spain is I've spoken to people like yourself, and I can't remember the gentleman's name from Tenerife, and my own interest is the history of Spain going back to the age of discovery all that type of thing. I have learned that Spain, as you mentioned, is a smaller country, obviously, in the US and Canada, but it's very, very diverse, be it the south, be it the north, east, or to the west, bordering obviously with Portugal as well. Now, there is some internal history, naturally, and political conflict, let's say, for want of a better term. I don't know enough about it other than just to state that I understand that the Basque country historically, or it might be ongoing, has always looked to separate from Spain. So why is Basque country, or let me rephrase that, is Basque, the region, country, very different to Spain? So regardless of the political background to it, when you go into the Basque country, are you noticing a different type of Spain?
Yes, certainly. But I have to tell you, not only in the Basque Country, even if you go to Catalonia, if you go to the Balearic Islands, if you go to Galicia, you know, it's as I mentioned before, in Spain we have a lot of mountains. People don't know that, but we have a lot of mountains, and they create very unique and different communities. That's why I think, tourism is so important and came so naturally to our way of life, because what tourists want is something different. And in Spain, you can find this difference, you can find this uniqueness in different regions. So it's not something that every valley is the same, or every city is the same, or every region is the same. No, in Spain, we have many uh, regional languages, we have many different, gastronomies, cuisines, or landscapes and cultures. And of course, the Basque Country is one of them. And of course, you notice it right away, just when you land at the airport, and you notice that. Particularly if you can speak Spanish, you notice that some of the people don't speak Spanish; they speak Basque language. It's their own
Mm-hmm.
language. So certainly, it's something that it's very noticeable. The same happens in Catalonia. You have another flag, you have another language, Catalan, and also in the
Okay.
northern part of Catalonia, a small valley called Val d'Aran, and they have Aranese, that is originally from France. It's also a different language. So we have plenty of languages in Spain. Yes, if you are slightly an expert, it's not the first time that you're in Spain, but it's the second or the third one, the third time that you're in Spain, you notice it right away. So it's different.
Okay.
And
So
again, that's
I
part
guess,
of the appeal. That's part of the appeal
yeah,
of our destination.
exactly. You took the words out of my mouth because, like most modern day countries, if you look into your history, and people who listen to me should know that I love my history, that I know that Spain, prior to becoming modern day Spain, was a whole lot of city states, as Italy was, as France was, as England was as well. They were all sort of Northumberland. They were all regions that eventually coalesced into what we now know as England, UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. So it doesn't surprise me, but it seems to me, and again, I'm not a European expert, but it seems to me that Spain seems to hold onto those differences, and I mean that in a positive way, of those city states. As you just mentioned, like Catalonia has a different language, a different style of Spanish. Basque is a separate language altogether. And as you mentioned, again, from one region to another, it can be noticeably different. Is that a fair statement to say that Spain, out of other European countries, these individual, what were city states, held on to their original languages and cultures more than maybe city states of Italy or France?
Well, I think our history is slightly different. So Spain was unified much earlier than, for instance, Italy or Germany. But it
Mm-hmm.
was done in a very particular term. So it was like a collection of kingdoms
Kingdoms,
that
yeah.
just went together, under one crown, so to speak. But in those years, it was before, discovering America. So it was like a loose unification, so to speak, that allowed different regions or different small kingdoms to thrive differently. So it
Mm-hmm.
was one single country, but with their own, particularities. Just to give you an example, Columbus reached America before the island of Tenerife became part of Spain.
Yeah, yeah.
So just an example. So this is the reference more or less. So we became unified, but in medieval terms, so to speak. So it was something that we were together for centuries, but always being respectful to the local to the local culture, with exceptions, of course, because we had some wars that were very unfortunate. But
Yeah, yeah.
we somehow managed to stay together in this way. I'm calling it this loose federalism that was very unique at that time. So that's why we could preserve our own identities. So I think everything, this collection of unique cultures, is what makes Spain so different.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I speak only from having spoken to people like yourself, and again, other tourism boards from Europe. And I just find the more I learn about Spain, the more it's, as you just mentioned there, it's this family of, well, it's one country now, it's Spain, but it's still this family of smaller regional federations, for want of a better term, that had their own unique identities, which is amazing. The only other place that I've learnt about, I'm not saying it doesn't exist elsewhere in Europe, is in Switzerland, where there are three distinct parts of Switzerland. There's the French, there's the Swiss, there's the Italian part, and you get those three identities within one country. Spain sounds very similar, more so than, say, France or Italy, which, again, I say all that because I think that's one of the big highlights of going to somewhere like Spain, is that it's not a uniform experience across, east to west, north to south. It'll be different as you move from region to region, or even valley to valley. Um, what's your wine culture like in Spain?
Well, wine is what defines a region. I think it's the typical produce that grows from your soil. So people are very strongly attached to the wine. It's something that is amazing. And here, if you're from a certain valley, you are very proud of the wines that grow there. So we have more or less around 22 uh, wine regions in Spain that are considered of tourism experience, because not all wine regions are visitable. But now what we are seeing, and this is one of the great advantages of being such a popular tourism destination, is that now many vineyards and many winemakers combine, the commercial trade with the tourism experience, and they create their own museums. You're able to visit their own uh, vineyards, or to see that the winemaking. And this is something that really is revolutionizing the experience and this trade, because just to give an example, some people in the Basque Country, instead of having vineyards, they just let the wines under the sea. So they have posits there under the sea, and you just have to scuba dive there to see the wines and just can enjoy them after this dive. So it's a lot of unique experiences that combine tourism and the joy of drinking wines. So it's, for instance, La Rioja is a region that now is becoming very popular. It's one of the fastest growing regions in Spain right now among North Americans, and we think it's because of the wine mainly, or the name at least.
Okay. So obviously you can hear there, everyone listening in, that we have focused heavily on the food, which has a fantastic offering, be it Spanish in general or regional in particular. And of course, it can be paired with the many Spanish wines on hand. Um, Spain, again, I've been to a lot of countries in Europe. I've done all the countries in Latin America, but I've not been to Spain, which is very remiss of me. I do love my Spanish history and influences from my time in Latin America. And the more I speak to people from Spain, be it directly or their representatives, a Magí here, I need to get there. And I have a very good friend who goes across now every year. She Airbnbs and Bs it, goes to a local Spanish school. She goes exploring, exactly as Magí has mentioned here. She's done the big cities, Valencia, Madrid, Barcelona. She's now exploring off into those little different regions and valleys, exploring the differences that Spain offers. And again, a positive, it's not as big as the US or Canada or Australia from where I'm from originally. So therefore, everything we're discussing is in a very compact area. We haven't touched on the infrastructures, but rail, air, bus, car. It's very easy to get around Spain, even with the mountains in between. There's some fantastic outdoor activities. There's their coastline, as we've mentioned, as well. Lots of resort options if that's your cup of tea. Cultural, historical. Spain's got it all in a very, very small spot. And again, what I'm learning more and more every time I talk about Spain is the diversity in this country is simply stunning. And as Magí mentions, based on his stats, you've got people going back more than 10 times. So from a purely business point of view out there, getting someone to Spain, you can easily get them back to explore another region, which will be, if not completely different, very different from the last spot they visited. So on that note, I'd like to thank Magí for his time today. But before we do say goodbye, Magí, is there anything you would like to leave our listening audience with about Spain in general, the eclipses in particular, the food, anything else you'd like to add to our conversation today?
Well, I was just like, I like your last idea that maybe travel advisors should focus on Spain or specialize in Spain because, it's the best way to get repeating income or repeating clients, so it's very easy for them, to focus on one single country that can offer such a diverse experience.
Yeah, and I think the other big plus about that too is from my past conversations, and I think Ajay's also mentioned it today, if not directly, indirectly, that you can go into the big cities, Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia, etc., and have the hustle and bustle of a big European city with everything we discussed today, history, culinary, delights. But then to get away from the crowds, be it at high season or any time throughout the year. This is the other big advantage of Spain due to geographical location and also the fact that, like a lot of countries, shoulder season is a good time to go. And of course, our winter is still very tolerable over there in Spain as well. So not only is it is a return destination, it is a destination for year round. And as we know, more and more people are wanting to get away from the crowds anywhere in the world, not just Europe. So somewhere like Spain offers that opportunity to get away from the crowds. Again, as I said, be it the high season, be it the shoulder season, or be it the off season, which is winter. It's not really an off season anymore. It's just the winter season as well. So again, I'd like to thank Magí for his time today. If anyone out there has any questions, you can reach out to the Go Away Destination Specialists here who can assist you on all things Spain. Of course, if you're in the US or even if you're in Canada, you can contact Magí directly at his office in New York for any support you may need, marketing material, further education. We do have a travel module in the Academy on Spain as well. I'll throw a little one. We have one on Portugal also because they're just their sister countries. So if you want to learn more about the country itself, check out the Go Away Pro Travel Academy. Again, I'd like to thank Magí for his time. And as always, thank you out there for giving us an hour or so of your time today. We know how busy you are. And until next time.
Thank you very much.